I'm going to be making a gluten-free apple and rhubarb tart today. For this, I've got 200 grams of gluten-free flour, 50 grams of sugar, I've used caster sugar for that, 100 grams of butter. I've pre-cooked my rhubarb, sliced down my apple in quite nice thick chunks, and 4 eggs, which I'll be separating the yolks from the whites. First step to making the flour is tip the flour into a bowl, add the sugar, and then add the butter. And then we're just going to crumble the butter into the flour so it looks like a crumble topping mix. So that's my pastry with the butter rubbed in. The next stage is to separate the eggs. So there's 2 ways of separating the eggs. We can just crack the egg, open it up, and then just keep pushing the yolk from side to side, which will then separate the whites. I can go into there. Or the other way of doing it is just through your fingers. So you can just separate it like that and then transfer it over. So that's my egg yolk separated. I just mix them up. And then just add to my pastry mix. And then just mix that in. So we can now make the pastry dough. Once it starts sticking together, then you can just get your hands in there and just bring it and bind it into one lump, which is exactly what we're looking for. And that's now my pastry into one lump. I'm just going to put that to the side and start preparing the tin. The next stage for this is to get the pastry into the tin. Now, I quite often think that when we put in pastry, we must roll it. Well, especially with gluten-free pastry, it's very what we call short, which means it's quite a high butter content and it's easy to crack, as you can see just there. And as soon as you start rolling it, it then starts cracking a little bit more. So the easiest way to do it is to put it into the tin and just press it down and then push it right the way up into the sides. Any of the excess stuff you have, keep it, and then maybe we can do some mini ones. So just take your time, slowly push that out to whatever thickness you want, and then we'll be ready to blind bake it. So that's my pastry done, and that's been trimmed. Just going to get my fork and just put some holes in the bottom there, so this is ready to be blind baked. Put my greaseproof paper on there, and then my baking beans. If you don't have baking beans, you can use rice or you can even use flour. So it's anything just to weight down the pastry. Just tip those in there and spread them out nice and evenly right the way around the edges also. This now needs to go into the oven at around about 160 to 170 degrees for 15 to 18 minutes. Once that's done, we'll then remove the baking beans and we'll cook it for another 5 minutes without the baking beans in there or the paper. The pastry's cooked. Next stage is the filling. So I'm just going to get my apple, which I've allowed to drain, and just place that around the pastry. and then just break little bits up, just put it into the centre. And I'm going to get my rhubarb and just put that on top and just kind of crumble that around it. What I've also done is I've made a very, very quick custard up, which I'm going to pour onto this. This is really simple to make. All I've done is 1 egg. I put 200 millilitres of water on to be really nice and thick when it cooks. Some sugar into that, and I've put a little bit of vanilla essence in there, but you don't need that if you haven't got that. And then just slowly pour that over it. Being careful not to overfill the pastry casing. And then I'm just going to put that back into the oven for around about 10 to 15 minutes, or until that's cooked and that's nice and set. And that's on at 150 degrees. So what I'm going to do is use the egg whites we had. So I'm going to top this tart with a meringue. So I'm using the 4 egg whites, and I've got 230 grams of caster sugar there, of which once I've whisked this up, I'll only add half at a time, and then I'll fold the rest in. But we'll go through that as we move into the next stage. So very important things with meringues: making sure that there's no yolk left in the egg white, and make sure that all of your equipment is clean and there's no fat on it, because that will then stop it going into a good peak, with which is what you need with a meringue. So that's a good peak now. So all I'm going to do is just add slowly half of my sugar on a low speed now. You can do this manually, you don't have to have a machine to do this. That's half the sugar in there now, and I'm just going to add around about 1/3 of the sugar, and then just fold that in. Just now going to generously add the meringue on top. So that's the meringue on top, and that's going to go in the oven at 100 degrees, and we'll leave that in there for about 20 to 30 minutes.